American politics. I'm going to create an analogy, and this can help you to better understand how I see politics in this country and the perspective of the dysfunction that I see in both sides because our country is very polar. You've got the duopoly, right? The left, the right, the Democrats, the Republicans. So, in this analogy, the big problem is health related. A lot of people are having a lot of health issues that are related to their weight. So, a lot of people are overweight, and as a result, it's causing them to have health issues. Um, Democrats step up and they start pushing for policies to address this. They are talking about, this is a serious problem. We need to address it. It's going to lead to a lot of people getting sick. It's going to lead to a lot of costs, healthcare costs and things like that. So one of the big proposals that the Democrats keep talking about is they wanna mandate that all offices install standing workstations, because when you're standing, you're burning more calories, right? And that's gonna help to address this issue. Now, it is factually accurate that installing these standing workstations will in fact cause people to burn more calories versus sitting down. So the Democrats are not wrong in this thinking, but because they're more interested in the political benefits of pushing a certain rhetoric and appearing to be concerned about things, they haven't really thought it through, right? So the effects of the standing workstations is going to be marginal, right? So the folks on the right, they'll seize on this rather than actually looking at the problem as well and come up with a better solution, like, oh, instead of just standing workstations, let's do X, Y, and Z. No, their whole perspective is to be contrarian to the Democrats, right? So Democrats talked about a real problem, weight issues, health issues. They come up with a solution that's kind of half-assed, which they didn't really think through very much. It will help, right? But there's better ways to do it. There's better approaches, but they're not really interested in that. They're just interested in the political points. They get their base all jazzed up, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to do stuff, healthcare, whatever." And everyone's on board, and then a lot of liberal cities start putting in these rules to mandate standing workstations. And then you have people on the right, they're just mocking it and laughing at it and pointing out how it doesn't make sense. And then they look at the statistics and they say, look, statistics show that these standing workstations aren't really doing much. It's stupid. It's a dumb idea. These liberals are crazy, and all this stuff about weight control, whatever, it's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. These radical left policies, blah, blah, blah. All they're doing is they're incurring more costs for the businesses, and that's hurting the economy. So that anything that's happening negative in the country, they're gonna pin it on the Democrats based on this policy that they're going against, right? So if there's inflation, and the reason part of this inflation is because there's Democrat policies of these standing workstations adding an average of 5% cost to businesses. What do you think that means when you increase costs of businesses? That's going to slow the hiring, and that's going to increase costs, and that's inflation, and the Democrat, right? So they'll come with this disingenuous argument, and then, again, never addressing the real problem, right? Or if they address it, it's kind of like silly stuff, just the stuff off the top of their head, and they don't really make an effort to actually do the thing, because the whole point is they are just as serious about solving the issue as the Democrats are, right? Neither is serious, right? The Democrats need to have something that has some level of potential to actually address the issue. So the standing workstations, again, will burn more calories, so it will in some way help the issue, right? Just not very thought through. They could do better, right? The Republicans, since the Democrats are proposing the solution, all they need to do is to bash it, right? They don't have to come up with a creative idea themselves. They just come up with how it doesn't work. And then since it is a half-assed program, any failures at all, any issues at all, they're going to point that out. Now, Democrats can escalate and say, okay, we're going to mandate that employers require their employees to work out, 2 days a week or something like that, right? More exercise. So now it's a better plan. That's actually, now you're getting something that's more sensible than the standing workstations, right? And there's not really that's cost, right? Unless you're mandating them to have a gym. If you're just mandating them to force their employees to work out, then it's kind of like, okay. Now, the right will, instead of, again, coming up with a better solution, their whole perspective is to be contrarian to what the Democrats are proposing or the left is proposing. So then what they'll do is they'll seize on anything negative at all, right? Again, let's not address the problem. Let's ignore the problem. Let's focus on going on the opposite side of whatever the Democrats are doing. So Democrats want people in the office to work out. First of all, freedom, right? How dare they, a company forcing workers to work out? This is America. If I don't want to work out, I shouldn't be forced to work out. This is like Hitler, and they're trying to turn this country into some kind of some kind of country where we don't have freedoms and stuff like that. The Constitution, right? Right. And again, it's not about solving the problem. It's not a serious sort of a rebuttal. It's all about being contrarian to whatever the left or the Democrats are doing, right? If they were serious, if they had integrity, then what they would do is they would acknowledge the seriousness of the problem, and they would come up with a superior solution. They would say, okay, Democrats, yes, there is a problem with health and whatever, but we don't think forcing workers is the way to do it. What we think needs to be done is X, Y, and Z, and the reason why we think this is better is because the way you're doing it, here are the problem, blah, 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 right? But typically, what they'll come up with is just, let's not do this because this is a failure, and they'll seize on anything that's problematic with whatever the Democrats are doing. So, for example, if there's some statistics, so some of these companies, you have a percentage of people that, if they're going to exercise means potential injuries, right? So there's some kind of scientific study, and they find out that since the Democrats implemented this policy, there's been 5,000 injuries that have happened. Now, it's not like people going to surgery, right? If you're going to exercise, you're going to sprain an ankle, stuff's going to happen, right? But then right-wing media will seize on these reports. Do you know there's 5,000 Americans that have, they because of the exercise program, there's 5,000 injuries and this and that. Injuries have went up by 5%. Now, at the same time that these injuries are happening, which are totally normal, there could be a ton of benefits where stress levels are lower, divorce rates are lower, people are happier, right? All this kind of stuff. Healthcare costs are lower now because people are in better shape because they've been exercising. They'll ignore all of that and they'll just go, 5,000 people have injuries because of these Democrat policies that are forcing people to exercise. This is America. You don't tell me to exercise. Right? This is against the Constitution. We Americans have a right to decide how they want to do their health care. Right? Never addressing the issue. Never saying, we agree we need to be better with health. Now here's the grand finale. Here's the grand finale of the absurdity of American politics, right? 10, 20 years in the future. Let me take a quick look in the comment section real quick, and then we'll go into the future. Good to see you, Shay. Yet forced business to close down. Okay, let's wrap it up. So let's go into the future, 10, 20 years in the future of this. So Democrats with their half-assed strategies, right, which have, some benefits, some not so much benefits. Definitely they could have used a lot more thinking. And it's funny, part of the reason why I think Democrats get stuck in some of these ideas that may not be the best ideas is because of the duopoly, the left and right. So if you have the right that's constantly coming and saying, injuries, people are getting injuries and freedom or whatever, then rather than focusing on whatever they're doing and looking at what's working, what's not working, and adjusting it, they spend more time responding to Republicans who are very, very good with their messaging, and that machine between Fox News and independent right-wing media operating in sync together, pushing this, these injuries, Democrats are causing people to have injuries and this and that, right? So then instead of focusing on making the program better, they're focusing on arguing with Republicans and this and that, and Republicans don't care about Americans' health and this and that. Anyway, fast forward to the conclusion. So 10, 20 years in the future, um, the program that the Democrats implemented, because of some failures, because they're not really thinking it through, it wasn't really as effective as it needed to be. So we had an explosion of people with health issues. Um, let's say 80% of Americans are severely obese. Healthcare costs are through the roof. There's a lot of damage because of this issue that the Democrats were talking about decades ago, that we need to address it. So they were right. We did need to address it, right? But the way that they did it wasn't the best strategy. And now we have this big problem. So now you say to yourself, okay, so now do the Republicans now acknowledge that the Democrats had a good point about that we need to address this healthcare thing? Like, do they sort of self-reflect and be like, oh wow, I guess we should have taken this more seriously. We should have spent more time trying to address the problem than just pointing out the flaws and, oh, look what the left is doing, right? No, that's not what they're going to do. What they're going to do is, we need to escape blame, right? We were wrong on this one, and we probably knew from the beginning. We were just playing political games, just like the Democrats were in another way. So now we need to get the stink off of us, that we were the ones that were against, exercise and whatever. And now America's so fat, right? So how do you escape from that? You've got to find a culture war issue to attach it to and pin it on the left and the Democrats. So one of the reasons why people are overweight could be, perhaps, let's say Nancy Pelosi, her husband, purchases McDonald's, right? So Nancy Pelosi's husband has purchased McDonald's. In the rural parts of the country, more red states, they have moved away from a lot of fast food, and it's a rural thing, right? City life, you need things fast and instant, so they are more embracing of these like fast food places. So this Pelosi-run McDonald's is mostly in blue cities, big blue cities, right? So rather than acknowledging they were wrong and now let's take this seriously, now there's a new rhetoric of the reason why people are fat and all this stuff is because of Democrats and their fast food restaurants. That's what's killing it. We need to eat more vegetables and this and that. The Democrats have been, feeding people this toxic nuggets and burger. And Pelosi has been talking about diet and health. Meanwhile, she's been feeding Americans all these burgers and fries, and that's the problem. It's Democrat policies why America is overweight. Never mind, people are overweight in rural areas as well, where they aren't these McDonald's, right? But they'll do that. They will go and say the reason why across the board, so including rural places where the Pelosi-run McDonald's they aren't there, they will still say, oh, it's the Democrats and their McDonald's and the fast food stuff. That's why Americans are overweight, and that's why the economy is hurting because of all these sick people and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, you can't win. You cannot win. You cannot win. You come up with something that's based on something serious, they won't try to challenge it on, here's a better way, this is a better way to do it, let's improve. You guys, this is a real problem, we acknowledge it, but we think we can do better. No, we're just gonna go on the opposite of whatever, right? And then when the consequences of what the Democrats were pretending to care about, when that finally comes in, then it's like, okay, let's move the goalpost, all right? Let's escape blame. Oh, see, you guys were wrong. You spent all this American money, tax dollars, for all of these standing workstations. And what did you accomplish? Nothing. The Democrat policies, they don't work. They're a failure. And that's why you need to vote for Republicans. And of course, this all gets echoed through the partisan media. What's up, Lisa? Good to see you. Now, let me go actually have my lunch. It's supposed to be my lunch break, and I'm here making videos with you guys. So it's always good to hang out with you guys. Hopefully the sound wasn't too bad. It's a little windy. But I do need to get my food. 10 to 20 years, we'll be like 1981. Later, guys. All right, later, Lisa. Yes, always culture war. Yes. Let me one last point. Talk about everything wasn't political. So back in the day when I wasn't politically involved, I posted on my community. I used to watch Fox Business, right? And I didn't know about all the games and all this kind of stuff. So I listened to them. They talk about. I don't know if things have changed, but I never noticed anything. But at work, they have it playing in the office, and it's so political, man. They're talking about Hunter Biden on Fox Business. Like, what does Hunter Biden have to do with Fox Business? And I don't know if it's Laura Ingraham. There's a lady that keeps coming on. She sounds like, because I can only hear the audio. She sounds like Laura Ingraham, and she's always on some like political, like, oh, and Joe Biden, this and that. Like, even on the business, I could see the news, like the opinion side, but tell me about the stock market or investments or, are we going into a recession or not? What you talking about Hunter Biden, man? Come on. Well, they're getting paid though, right? That's why they do it. They're getting paid. All right, guys. All right, Shay. Thanks for stopping by, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, later, guys.